to an introduction to information systems. I am Anthony Dewberry, your host, and please enjoy the presentation. Thanks. So, as I said, this is the introduction to information technology. And information technology is one of the fastest growing and highest paying careers today. There are a few basic components of information technology that we're going to be discussing today for a couple minutes. And these include hardware, software, networks, and the internet. All of these components work together to enable people to work and communicate in real time and with high efficiency. First, we will discuss the hardware components. Hardware includes numerous components and machines that you may use every day. Hardware includes desktop computers, laptop computers, tablets, cell phones, printers, storage devices, fax machines, copy machines, and other things you use in your home, classroom, or office, likely on a daily basis. There are numerous choices for selecting your basic hardware components. The most basic setup will need a computer, a laptop or a desktop, or maybe even your smartphone or iPad or other tablet. You'll also probably want to have a printer, a mouse, a keyboard, and perhaps a USB storage device to back up your work. While everyone does not need a top-of-the-line machine to accomplish your daily tasks, there are a few basic things to consider when you're shopping for your hardware components. You'll want to decide what you'll be using your computer for primarily. Will it be used for work? If so, what kind of programs do you have to use for work? If you're involved in a multimedia production or graphic-heavy work, you will likely need to find a machine with enhanced processing power. And this will also be true if you're buying a computer for gaming, for instance, or for web browsing or video watching or whatever it is. The more detail you know about what you'll be using your machines for, the better you will be able to discern what you need to buy. So processing power is a phrase used when referring to the capability of your processor chip. The speeds are generally measured in gigahertz, abbreviated as GHz. So when you're actually shopping for a computer or a laptop, you will likely see the figure of 2.5 GHz or 3.2 GHz or 1.8 GHz. What that's talking about is the gigahertz of the processor. The higher the gigahertz of a processor, the more information it can process per second. However, this is not the only number to consider for processors when you're shopping around. You'll also want to consider how many cores the processor has. Now, when computers first became a consumer product in the mid-80s, early 90s, processors only had one core. Now I believe that we're up to 8 to 12 cores depending on the sophistication of your machine. Multiple cores means that more information can be processed smoothly and more efficiently. When you have multiple cores, this also allows the single core to not get burnt out, so the heat is distributed between the multiple cores, and each core can handle a certain amount of information. Aside from the processor stats, you will also need to consider the RAM capacity. The RAM, or random access memory, is short-term storage that your device uses to store information you are inputting currently. Your RAM will usually get reset every time you turn on or off your computer, and it's really just used to handle the processor to show you what you're typing in or watching or browsing or whatever you're doing with your computer. The number of RAM really helps the speed of your computer when you're doing multitasking, or if you have, for example, multiple displays, you would want a system with higher RAM so both displays can kind of keep up with what you're doing. If you'll be doing a lot of processing, whether in Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, or if you're the kind of person who has 20 internet tabs open simultaneously, you will be needing a machine with a higher number of RAM to handle your demands. The last basic thing to consider with your hardware purchase is going to be the storage capacity. Many new computers are actually sold with low internal storage now, and that is as opposed to a couple years ago when the internal storage of computers was kind of thought of to be the bigger the better. This is due to two things. The first thing is the development of the SSD hard drive, and these ones have replaced the older HD systems, which actually were spinning disks that were big and heavy and slow and prone to decay from dust and weathering, whereas the SSD systems are sleek and light and small and run much faster and cooler than the old ones do. The second thing affecting storage now is cloud storage. Cloud storage has become a very big deal. It is cheap, reliable, and accessible from multiple devices. So for instance, if you have an Apple device, you will likely have access to the iCloud. If you have an Android phone or Gmail, you have access to Google's Drive. If you have a Microsoft system, you have access to the OneDrive. All these are cloud-based storage solutions, but the neat thing about cloud storage is you could access it from your computer, your laptop, your desktop at work, your cell phone, your tablet, whatever device you have, you can access the same information and files through the cloud. And that's especially handy now when most people are working remotely. Another IT component is software. Software is to hardware as a brain is to a body. Software is the programs that run your computer. Software can be as simple as a file exploring program on your computer, which is actually the innovation of Microsoft Windows, and it was called Microsoft Windows because it featured exploring windows instead of just code and commands that were ran in DOS, which was a very old programming language. Many of you might not even be familiar with what DOS was, but it was a simple command code. So when Microsoft came out with Visual Windows, it was a big hit. Software can range from free, which is called freeware, to being very expensive. You also have bloatware, which is ad supported. You also have malignant software, which would be your viruses, your worms, etc. But it's really up to the software developers to set prices and to be competitive in their respective marketplaces. Many software developers are switching their business models to go from software that you buy once and own straight out into programs that run like services. These often include the ability to use the program on the cloud and on multiple devices. The only catch is there's usually a monthly subscription fee instead of paying once for the license that's yours forever. Big hitting companies like Adobe, Intuit, and even Microsoft have all transitioned their main software suites into subscription services. And Adobe, for instance, went from the CS, the Creative Suite numbers, which came in a packet for a couple $100, into now the Creative Cloud, which for one monthly price that you commit to paying every month, you get access to all their programs. Intuit even has taken their bread and butter program, not literal bread and butter, but their main hitting program, QuickBooks, from a once a year licensing thing to a free online experience where you can purchase upgrades depending on what you need to do in it. And even Microsoft, they transitioned from Microsoft Office, which is probably their most popular product besides Windows itself, and started Microsoft Office 365, which is the cloud-based Microsoft Office version, which is accessible on your smartphone and most of your other devices. And this really benefits the software developers by allowing them to have a subscriber where they're paying monthly. And most people would rather pay, say, $40 a month every month than they would pay $200 right out of the box. And even though the subscription price is cumulatively more than the straight out price compared to what it used to be anyway, the consumer would prefer to just pay monthly because it seems to be more affordable. So software is a necessary component of your IT setup. Without it, your computer would just be a thoughtless machine. It wouldn't really know what to do with itself. It would just be kind of sitting there costing you electricity. So another important component of the IT setup is networking equipment. There are three basic components to networking setups. The first one is switches. Switches act as a controller connecting computers, printers, and servers to a specified network. There are two kinds of switches: on-site or cloud-based switches. The type you want really depends on the size of the space the network is in and how many employees need access to the network. On-site switches are better suited for small spaces or smaller businesses with less employees, whereas cloud-based switches are better for more employees and bigger spaces. And depending on which switch you choose, it'll also kind of depend on your IT support staff setup. If you have a person who is there physically or you have a whole IT department, chances are you're going to have physical switches mostly. If you have a remote IT person, you're going to have, of course, a cloud-based switch that they can manage from anywhere where they're at. So the second component to the network are routers. A router acts as a dispatcher. It analyzes data being sent across a network, chooses the best route for data to travel, and sends it out as well. And the last component for networking are access points. Access points allow access to the network or selected devices wirelessly. When all these components are combined, you should have a viable working computer network that will allow you access to your work hard drive, your networked files, and probably most popularly, the internet. So thank you for watching my brief display here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you a great rest of the day.